Do you want to make fresh juice at home and save time and money while adding more nutrients into your diet, but you just don't know how to get started? Well, this video is your one-stop shop to batch juicing for beginners. My name is Adia and welcome back to my channel, The Tree Hugger. In this video, I'm laying out step-by-step everything you need to know to batch juice like a pro, including what to prep, how to batch juice, and how to properly store your juice. You can also check out the link in the description below to download my absolutely free Batch Juicing for Beginners guide. And y'all, I am on my way to reaching 1,000 subscribers. So if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to subscribe to my channel. What is batch juicing and why is it so popular? Well, batch juicing is when you make a large quantity of juice in one go rather than making fresh juice every single day. And there are some real benefits to batch juicing. It saves time because you're not having to set up and juice and clean up every single day, which also means you're spending less time in the kitchen cleaning up after yourself. Not only that, but batch juicing actually encourages consistency in your juicing journey because you have fresh juice ready to go when you want it. For today's video, I'll be using my Nama J2 juicer, and this is a really great juicer for juicing because with the size of the hopper, you can just load it up with your ingredients and let it do its thing. Now, before I actually get into juicing, I want to talk about produce selection and prep. If you're new to juicing or you just don't spend much time in the kitchen in general, I highly recommend that you first check out my video, How to Purchase Quality Produce, to make sure that you are selecting the most ripe and the most flavorful produce for your juicing recipes. For today's recipe, I'm using 3 English cucumbers. I have 8 carrots here. And I'll also be adding in 4 sweet navel oranges for a nice little sweetness to the juice, as well as 3 lemons for a nice balance of citrus. And finally, I'll be adding in a 2-inch piece of ginger. Now, I know you can't always tell in videos, but all of my produce has been thoroughly washed, and that's a really important step because you don't want any dirt or other things that might be trapped inside of your produce to end up inside of your juice. And now that everything's washed, I can just go ahead and start prepping my ingredients to go inside of the juicer. If you've been on my channel for a while, you'll actually notice that most of my videos, this one included, focus majority on the prep rather than the actual juicing. And that's because the key to juicing is all in the prep, y'all. Prepping is how you set yourself up for success, not only in juicing, but in life. And so once your juicer is on, all you have to focus on is actually adding in your produce. Now, this is just a side note for my people who are new to juicing. If you're going to use any produce that has a core inside or seeds, even like apples, you do want to remove as much of that as possible before you actually put it inside of your juicer, and that'll just make it much easier on your juicer to actually break down those ingredients. I began juicing regularly about 7 years ago now because I actually developed pretty severe eczema all over my hands and on my neck. I still experience it sometimes to this day, but not nearly as bad as my initial breakout. When I first developed eczema, I remember trying so many topical steroids. I even started taking shots at one point, but they only kind of managed my condition and it never completely went away. So I began juicing kind of as a way to support my immune system and just help my body really do what it does naturally. One mistake that I made early on in my juicing journey was that I did not select the best balance of ingredients for my recipes. Today, I tend to use way more fruits than vegetables in my recipes, especially if I'm making a juice that's for the purposes of nutrition as opposed to flavor. Fruit can obviously be a great addition to any recipe, but fruits just naturally contain higher concentrations of natural sugar. So if you're drinking this juice every day and it has a lot of fruit in it, you could very easily be consuming a high concentration of sugar in just one sitting. And that can really spike your blood sugar and just leave you feeling bloated and fatigued throughout the day. If you've been on my channel for a while, you may have noticed that I never actually use leafy greens in my recipes like kale or spinach. And that's because leafy greens just don't have that much water content. And personally, I think it's kind of a waste of ingredients to try to juice something that is majority pulp because the pulp is for the most part removed during the juicing process. So it's kind of like you're not really getting much out of those ingredients. If you really want to consume more leafy greens in like a liquid form, I do think that a smoothie is your best bet where you can just blend up those ingredients directly. The other reason is that if you've ever actually juiced leafy greens, you'll know that it is so hard to clean the pulp out of a juicer. That said, it is possible to actually juice leafy greens. I have done it in the past. You just really have to be prepared to know that you're not going to get that much juice out of them. Another reason that I like to use the knife to remove the peel of my lemon, you know, beyond just that it would be really difficult to peel with my hands, is that there's this like white pith on citrus fruit. You can kind of see it here. And I've noticed that lemons tend to have a particularly bitter pith on them. So by using the knife to remove the peel, I can also cut a little bit deeper and actually take the pith off as I'm doing the peel. And here we have it. My ingredients are all prepped. I expect this amount of ingredients to give me anywhere between 90 ounces and 110 ounces of juice. But after I actually juice it, I'll let y'all know exactly how much it turns out to be. You're likely going to get a different juice yield, even if you recreate the exact same recipe at home. And that's just because really every piece of produce is kind of unique in its own way. 2 oranges from the same tree can have a totally different amount of water content. One can be juicier, one can be drier. And so that's one of the challenges in recreating juice recipes when you're just looking at the quantity of ingredients. I don't yet have a kitchen scale, but I really want to invest in one because using a kitchen scale and actually weighing out your ingredients will guarantee you a closer juice yield when you replicate a recipe, as opposed to just counting the number of oranges or the number of lemons or the number of cucumbers that you use per recipe. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, let me know in the comments below and I'll do a whole other video explaining what I mean in more detail. With my ingredients all prepped, I'm gonna do a little bit of cleanup and I'll be right back, so don't go anywhere. So now that I'm actually ready to begin juicing, this part is super straightforward, and I really set myself up for success by prepping all of my ingredients and my containers. As you can see, I have 3 different containers here, and that's because we're going to talk about storage a little later in this video. So I want to show you guys your different options. But first, let's make the juice. I'm using my J2 juicer for today's video, and if you want to learn more about the Nama J2 cold press juicer, I actually have a video that I'll link on the screen for you guys, or maybe on the side, so that you can check it out and see if it's a purchase that you'd be interested in making for yourself. But one thing I want to point out for you guys as I'm loading up my hopper is that you can help your juicer run more efficiently by layering up your ingredients. So if I were using leafy greens today, I would put those in first as the bottom layer, and after the leafy greens, we want to add in our soft produce like oranges and lemons. And I really don't have space, as you can see, to keep going. I don't want to go above this max fill line here. But if I were to put all of these ingredients in at once, it would really look like leafy greens if I were using them, soft produce, medium produce, and then firmer produce. So in this case, that would be my citrus, followed by my cucumbers, followed by my carrots. Okay guys, I actually realized that I had my Nama J2 on the wrong way, so I went ahead and corrected that. So now that that's fixed, let's go ahead and get to juicing. So my juice is just running. I'm gonna go ahead and use my food pusher to help that citrus move downward. One thing to note when you do start juicing is that you want to make sure your juice spout is closed. So for the sake of time, I'm gonna go ahead and speed this process up for us. As you can see, just from this recipe, juicing creates a lot of leftover pulp. Now, you can take a look at your pulp and see if it looks like pretty wet still. That means there's probably a good bit of juice still inside of the pulp, and you can actually run that through your juicer again if you would like to. I never really do that, and with the Nama J2 juicer, the pulp is usually dry enough on the first time, so I don't run it through again on this juicer. But I have heard that if you have to, you can run wet pulp through your juicer again. I do think that would be pretty hard to clean up though. I've gotten comments on my previous videos about what can you actually do with all of the pulp. I totally understand not wanting to have all of this pulp that kind of just ends up going to waste if you don't do anything with it, but you actually have quite a few options. I think one of the most straightforward is to just go ahead and compost it, especially if you have a garden. This would be a great addition to your compost. Another option is to freeze the pulp and use it later on in smoothies. You can put it in like a little ice tray and freeze it into smaller sizes that will work really well for just popping into a blender. But I think overall, one of my absolute favorite things that I've ever done with pulp was bake a cake with it. I think the juice I made was like carrot and orange, kind of similar similar to today's juice, and I just went ahead and added in as a replacement for a portion of the flour that I used in baking that cake, and it turned out really, really good. Looks like the juicer is all done, so I'm just gonna go ahead, do a little cleanup, and then we'll come back and talk about storage. One thing I did not mention that I wanna say really quickly before I forget, wash your juicer as soon as you're done juicing. Oh my goodness, I wish I knew this when I started my juicing journey. If you let that thing sit and dry up even a little bit, it becomes a lot harder to clean the tiny little pieces of pulp. Okay, now that that's covered, let's talk about juice storage. You can definitely just store your juice in the refrigerator in this container. It's actually perfectly designed for pouring into a cup, but I prefer to store my juice in airtight containers, and that can either be glass containers like the ones I have here or plastic containers, whatever works best for you. One thing I will say is to think about your lifestyle and choose the juice storage that makes the most sense for you. Obviously, I have this large glass pitcher. It fits about 1 liter of juice, and that's perfect for slower mornings when I have time to just grab a little glass and pour myself some juice. But sometimes I'm running out of the house in the morning to the office, and these 16-ounce glass bottles work best for grab and go. Or let's say I make a little wellness shot like my ginger and lemon shot recipe, then I will use something like this 2-ounce glass here so that I can already have my shots pre-filled and ready to go. It is recommended to store your juice inside of the refrigerator as opposed to the freezer, and that's really to avoid increasing the process of oxidation in your juice, which ultimately impacts the taste and quality of the juice. Now, if you absolutely have to store it in the freezer, that's cool. Just make sure you do not store it in glass, because as liquid freezes, it can expand, and even the slightest of expansion can cause that glass to shatter. So highly recommend plastic containers if you're gonna be putting your juice in the freezer. And when your juice is stored, it is really important to keep in mind that separation is natural. All you have to do is give it a good little stir and it'll be back to normal. After you finish juicing, you wanna make sure that you refrigerate immediately, and juice can last in the fridge for anywhere from 3 to 5 days before you'll start to notice a change in the flavor of the juice. I did promise y'all that I'll let you know how much juice that ended up making. Okay, so that's liters, and okay, it's a little bit shaky, but I am just under 56 ounces of juice here, which is a lot less than I thought it was gonna create, but that's totally fine. I just know that next time if I wanna make 100 ounces of juice or about 110 ounces of juice, I need to pretty much double the number of ingredients that I use. 56 ounces is a good amount of juice. That can last you anywhere from 3 to 4 days, depending on how many ounces you're drinking per day. All right, so I'm just gonna give this a little stir to really combine all of my ingredients. And then I'm gonna prep myself 1 16-ounce grab and go bottle, and I should be able to fit the rest in here. If you can, it's nice to fill your containers up to the top, not the very top, but like pretty close to the top. That minimizes how much oxygen ends up in the bottle, which helps reduce how much oxidation happens. Ooh. Okay, that was perfect. Literally, I don't think I could have fit another ounce in there. So I'm gonna go ahead and take a little taste. Very good. Gingery, citrusy. Almost as if I put ginger and citrus in here. And I'm gonna make sure that I close my jars up tightly, and then I'll pop them in the refrigerator and drink them over the course of the next 3 to 4 days. Hopefully it lasts that long. It probably won't. Thanks so much for watching, y'all. I hope this answered any questions you might have about the batch juicing process. If you have any lingering questions, go ahead and comment down below and I'll do my best to answer. If you haven't already done so, make sure you subscribe to my channel so that you can catch future videos, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.